Welcome everyone to another Turnbuckle Trash Talk, Turnpike to WrestleMania. We just wrapped up WrestleMania 35 last night, and overall, I've got to say, it was a really good show. I mean, there were some definitely underwhelming points, but there were also these amazing moments that will probably withstand the test of time and be etched into the history of WrestleMania. I am your officiant, Kent, and I'm going to talk about everything that happened last night. I'm going to talk about my predictions versus what happened. But before I get started, I want to give a really quick shout out to PW Scorecards, right there. They had this amazing service that I discovered from my friends on the A Couple Marks Wrestling podcast. They create these prediction score sheets that give you the ability to make your picks, but also weigh in on some hedge bets, like is it going to be a pinfall or a disqualification or a submission. And this isn't even a paid advertisement. I just really like what they did. So even though my score wasn't as high as I would have liked, I will kind of go over that because I thought it was just a really cool thing that enhanced my viewing experience on the show, and I recommend to you guys because I think it'll enhance your viewing in the future of pay-per-view events as well. So WrestleMania 35, we had the reaction live stream last night. Thank you guys so much who tuned in. It made the experience very enjoyable, so I'm very appreciative to you guys for watching along with me and weighing in on some of the match results and everything like that. Anyway, WrestleMania 35 was at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey last night. It was, like I said, a good show. I would say it was one of the better WrestleManias since WrestleMania 30. But we'll go through match by match, kind of talk about the results. I'll give my thoughts on each of the matches, and we'll wrap this puppy up and get the road started to WrestleMania 36. So the show kicked off with the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. Tony Nese defeated Buddy Murphy in a result that I did not see coming, even in the slightest. Even though Tony Nese is the hometown boy, he's from New York, I did not see him coming away with the win in this one. I had predicted Buddy Murphy. I thought he was going to continue his reign, but to see Tony Nese get the win kind of set the scene for what WrestleMania was going to be like. It was a lot of unexpected changes. Some of them were very predictable, but I got a lot of my picks wrong, and it kind of changed the experience for me. It made it enjoyable. It made it unexpected. So it was a good match. What's going to happen to Buddy Murphy after this? He'll probably have a rematch, but I could see him getting shaken up and sent to a NXT UK maybe. He's got a main event potential over there, but he could also end up on Raw or SmackDown. I don't think he's going to stay on 205 Live for very long. I think the future is looking very bright for Buddy Murphy, and I think he did help carry that show in that division for a while. So moving on, we saw Carmella win the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal. Again, this felt like hometown fan service. She's built from Staten Island, even though she's from Massachusetts. This is one of those matches that I feel like doesn't really have any effect on the grand scope of things. I was surprised to not see Asuka have a better showing. I was surprised that my pick, Lacey Evans, wasn't even in the Battle Royal. I really thought this was going to be the start to her ascent, her massive push. I thought we were going to see her win the WrestleMania Battle Royal and then move on to Raw or SmackDown and kind of make a bigger presence than her just walking out, which we saw her later do in the show. But she wasn't even in the Battle Royal. I also feel like this match was really underwhelming because they didn't use any of the legendary names I thought they would. They only had two people from NXT in it, but they didn't have a Candice LeRae. They didn't have a Shayna Baszler. They didn't really take the opportunity to bring any legends back and just have them have a one-off. They didn't make anything about this match particularly memorable to me. So it is what it is, I suppose. After that, we saw Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins win the Raw Tag Team Championship off of the Revival. I can definitely say at this point that the burial of the Revival is complete. I would not be surprised if they do not re-sign with WWE and do end up in an AEW or another organization like that after this. But I was very happy to see Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins win the titles. I'm happy to see Hawkins' losing streak end. I think it's about time, and there's no better place to do it than WrestleMania. And hopefully, they have some ideas for Ryder and Hawkins going forward. Hopefully this could do something to revive the pretty much dead tag team division on Raw. So I really have high hopes for that. Ryder and Hawkins were my picks, so I was happy to see them go over. If anything, to just get the belts off of the Revival so that they can leave and go do better things, because I think they deserve so much better than they've gotten. So we'll see what the results or the going forward of that is. Then we saw Braun Strowman win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Another very underwhelming match. I was happy to see Luke Harper in it. I was happy to see some of the other people in there that I did not expect to see. But overall, this was just a comedy segment. That's all it was. I feel like Braun Strowman is firmly in Big Show territory, and so be it, I suppose. But we saw the match end with the Hardys trying to eliminate Strowman when Colin Jost and Michael Che came from their hiding spot under the ring, attempted to help, and then everyone got eliminated. They had some segment with a therapist involved saying Braun should work through his anger. Again, this was just all comedy, pure comedy in its easiest form. Then we saw the actual main card start. We saw Alexa Bliss come out, say that she was hosting WrestleMania, that she could make a WrestleMania moment happen with the snap of her fingers, and then we got Hulk Hogan, and that turned this opening into a very awkward situation from my perspective. I don't think Alexa Bliss was super comfortable being up there with Hogan. Hogan tried to be funny, but then ended up kind of making a fool of himself. He tried to reference the whole Silverdome, Superdome mix-up from WrestleMania 30, but then decided to call it the MetLife Arena instead of the MetLife Stadium, which basically just was a repeat of the exact same mistake. But it's Hulk Hogan. You know, he is kind of a staple of WrestleMania. They're clearly trying to get him back in the fans' good graces after everything that happened. So, again, it is what it is. It will be a WrestleMania moment. Maybe not in the way they were planning, but nonetheless. After that, we saw a shocking turn of events to me. Paul Heyman walked out while Hogan was posing on stage to announce that if Brock Lesnar was not going to be in the main event of WrestleMania, then he wanted to get his match over early so that he could get on a plane to Las Vegas, to where he would be ultimately appreciated. Basically a reference to the UFC. I found this very humorous. I thought it was great, but it led to a very short match with Seth Rollins. We saw Seth Rollins take the title after 3 curb stomps, and we have a new Universal Champion. I did not see this coming. Anybody who's been watching the shows knows for the last few weeks I've been saying we're going to get maybe 2 out of 3 happy endings to matches. I thought this was going to be one of those matches where it was not going to be a happy ending. We were going to see Seth Rollins lose to Brock Lesnar, and that Brock would continue to be Universal Champion, but they did not do that. So it'll be very interesting to see where it goes from here. I did want Seth to win. I just thought realistically and logistically it made sense for them to push that match back to, or that moment back to Saudi Arabia, and just have Rollins get a rematch and then win the title. But nope, instead we see Rollins is now the Universal Champion in the opening match of WrestleMania. Just so much about that statement is confusing to me. There was a lot of weird pacing of the show, but I feel like it actually ended up working out. So then we saw AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. I actually had Randy Orton pegged to win because I thought that this was going to be one of those not happy ending, kind of like they have to balance it out with heels winning as well as faces winning. So I kind of expected Orton to win, but nope, we saw AJ Styles win, and it was a solid match. It was a really solid showing, good showing for them meeting for the first time. I felt like the story and build up to that match was really good, but I don't truly believe that feud will be over. I have a good feeling we're going to see a continuation of that because it's just too good of a story to stop in one match. After that, we saw Shane McMahon versus The Miz in Falls Count Anywhere. This was another kind of underwhelming match. I really expected this to get more violent. I expected to see maybe an appearance of the Mean Street Posse of all things. I expected something more from this, and the finish, we saw them suplex off of a camera stand only to have Shane win because he happened to be draped over The Miz. I'm not sure if they're going to continue this feud. We did see The Miz's dad get involved and get kind of knocked out by Shane. But I don't know if this is over or if they're planning on continuing this beyond. But it was an unexpected result. I had picked The Miz to win because I kind of felt like they were just going to cap off this story and move on from it. But that's not what happened. After that, we saw the four-way tag team championship match for the SmackDown Live tag team titles. The Usos retained against The Bar, Rusev and Shinsuke Nakamura, and Ricochet and Aleister Black. Some could say this was due to the Usos re-signing, and so they get to keep the titles. I really had picked Ricochet and Aleister Black to win, especially after not winning the NXT Tag Team Championship. I thought they would at least get a big moment at WrestleMania to be like, welcome to the main roster. You are firmly on the main roster now, because we saw them kind of say goodbye at TakeOver. But again, not the case. The Usos retain the titles. I'm not exactly sure what this means for the tag team division going forward. Are we going to see the New Day eventually get back into the mix and get the titles off of them, or where they're going? But it was, again, a pretty solid match. I'm not a big fan of four corners tag matches. I feel like they get mixed up really easy. And as a referee, they absolutely drive me crazy because it's pretty much breaking down constantly. After that, we saw the women's tag team titles on the line. This was a bit of a shocker finish for me. We saw the Iconics, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, defeat Sasha Banks and Bayley, Beth Phoenix and Natalya, and Nia Jax and Tamina. I had actually picked Sasha and Bayley to retain, but they decided to go in a different direction and put the belt on the Iconics. I can see the rationale behind doing that. I did not necessarily think Billie Kay and Peyton were ready or the right choice, but as we're talking, you got to balance the scales between heels and faces. So instead of having a Sasha and Bayley win, you had a Billie Kay and Peyton win, which gives a win in the heel column, I suppose. Also, by the outcome of this match, we knew we weren't going to get a four horsewomen all holding titles or all in the ring at the end of the show. So that kind of gave some insight into what we would see at the end of the show. After that, I think easily the match of the night, possibly a contender for match of the year, WWE Championship. Kofi Kingston defeated the new Daniel Bryan. This was an amazing match, amazing storytelling, probably the best build to WrestleMania all year long. It was fantastic. There was a slight giveaway for me in the beginning of this whole match where we saw a table with cloth on it covering what looked to be a belt. Now they ended up putting Daniel Bryan's belt on top of it, so at first I thought, oh, maybe it's a little pedestal that they have to hold the belt, but something in my mind said the original title belt is under there, that is not a pedestal. They're trying to cover up the fact that the belt is underneath there. And I was right. At the end of the match, we saw them pull the cloth back. There was the original title. But overall, this entire sequence from start to finish was absolutely fantastic. It was emotional. It was exactly what I think everybody wanted it to be, and that is going to be one of the moments that'll stand out and stand the test of time, much like Daniel Bryan at the end of WrestleMania 30. I feel like this is going to be the big moment of WrestleMania 35. I was very happy with it. And I'm excited to see a Kofi Kingston championship reign. I don't expect it to be super long, but maybe a couple months until he probably loses it back to Daniel Bryan, or maybe a Money in the Bank thing happens. But I'm still excited to see it. I am very happy for Kofi, and I'm happy for the fans as a whole. This was great. Moving on from that, we saw Samoa Joe defend his U.S. Championship against Rey Mysterio in what turned out to be a squash match. I think this is to accommodate the fact that Rey had an ankle injury, and so he could probably not work a very long match or a very intense match. So it was over in exactly 1 minute. I got the time on that match. It was a 1 minute match. It was unbelievable. But I had predicted that Samoa Joe was going to retain anyway. I'm happy to see that that was the case. But it was shocking to say the least. The one thing that I did enjoy about that whole segment was Rey Mysterio's entrance attire was obviously inspired by Mysterio from the Spider-Man comics. So that was really cool. After that, we saw Roman Reigns defeat Drew McIntyre in a very underwhelming match. I'm happy Roman won. Obviously, he was going to. It was his big comeback. But I did not see a very strong showing from Drew McIntyre. It was Superman punch, spear, and it was over. And I just don't think it left Drew looking very good. It seemed like they've been building him up this whole time to be this monster. But it just didn't end up looking that way. After that, we saw the Elias musical performance. They had an Elias on the screen playing drums, an Elias on the screen playing piano, and then the real Elias, the live Elias in the ring playing guitar. I thought that was kind of a cool setup. But then we got interrupted by the Doctor of Thugonomics, John Cena. He came out in his old 2002 gear. I thought that was really cool. It was insane to me how he looks like he hasn't aged when he's all dressed up like that. Maybe it was the hat covering the hair. Maybe it was something about the swagger, but he did not look like he had aged a day, and that was just crazy to me. But I really enjoyed the segment. I enjoyed his promo, and it again was one of those like WrestleMania moments that I think will stand out, and it actually made this show feel like WrestleMania. Just like the Kofi match, it made it feel like WrestleMania. After that, we saw Triple H versus Batista, no holds barred. If Triple H loses, he was to retire. This was a brutal match, just like we expected, but it was a lot of fun. It was a little bit long. It felt like it went on. It felt like a lot of the other matches on this show were pressed for time, but that this one took all the time it wanted. I liked the Mad Max entrance from Triple H. I liked the nose ring being pulled out by the pliers by Triple H. They kind of made it a very brutal and intense match, but you could tell that these guys really enjoyed themselves. And actually, early this morning, Batista announced his retirement. He seemed very pleased with the way everything ended up, and was happy with his send-off. So if he's happy, I'm happy. That's all we could really ask for. Triple H was not going to end his in-ring career during this match, so I'm not surprised to see that he won. After that, probably one of the most underwhelming segments of the entire show. Baron Corbin defeated Kurt Angle in his send-off match. It is what it is. I had hoped to see Angle versus Cena to kind of like say the beginning of Cena's career, the end of Angle's career. I thought there was a better story there. I get why they put over Corbin, but this was just not a good showing. It did not make Angle look good. It was not what I think should be the send-off to his career. It was just really underwhelming to me. Very, very underwhelming. But Baron Corbin beat Angle, and we saw the end of Angle's career. So very, very unfortunate in my mind, but it is what it is. Then we saw another underwhelming match. Again, I feel like these guys at the end of the show were really pressed for time, so I don't feel like we saw what we could have seen. But the Demon Finn Balor defeated Bobby Lashley for the Intercontinental Championship. I thought Balor's entrance was good. I liked actually in the match that he was using moves that he doesn't normally use. It put a very strong distinction between the Demon Balor and the Man Balor. So I thought that was very cool. And I was excited to see the makeup again. I really loved his entrance with him up on the platform and he was wearing the cape. I thought that was very cool. But again, overall, the match itself was just underwhelming, and it was one of those predictable finishes. I picked Demon Balor to win, so I was happy that Demon Balor won. So that was really cool. After that, in our main event, Becky Lynch is now the Raw and SmackDown Women's champion. I was happy to see that. That's what I predicted. The match itself was a little bit wonky, especially at the finish. A lot of people are saying they botched the finish. There's also some talk that the finish was purposefully kind of different because they wanted to have some controversy going forward. But what I'd wanted to see was Becky tap out Ronda in the middle of the ring at the end. Instead, there was some kind of roll-up. Apparently, Ronda's shoulders weren't down, or she was supposed to kick out. I don't know. There's a lot of talk, so we're going to have to keep up with that to see what it means going forward. I have absolutely no idea. But Becky Lynch is the champion. They kind of, I felt like, cut off her celebration a little quick, probably because it was 12:30 and they had gone long, is my guess. But they cut it off. But I'm happy to see Becky as the new champion. I'm interested to see what she's going to do on Raw and SmackDown going forward. If they're going to unify the belts, which is my idea, and have a women's champion who travels back and forth, just like the tag team titles, I think that would be really cool. But overall, again, I'm happy to say it was a solid WrestleMania. I felt like it did what it needed to do. It accomplished the primary goals it was meant to accomplish. And that was it. Anyway, going back to my PW scorecard, because I said I would, I got a total of 139 out of 349 combined points. So I got about a third of the points I had been able to get, which shows you just how off I was on some of my predictions. But I feel like that helps make a really, really solid show. So anyway, I enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. We're going to be back next week with another Turnpike to WrestleMania. We'll keep you up to date all the way up to WrestleMania 36 in Tampa, which we will hopefully be present for. And we're going to go by week to keep you up on Raw and SmackDown. So the Turnpike hasn't ended. It will continue on. Make sure to support us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We got our website, turnbuckletrashtalk.com. Give us a rating and review. 5 stars is really appreciated, but be honest, review the way you would review. But it does help the show get some publicity and get out there. We really appreciate that too. Anyway, as always, this Turnpike is toll free. I'll see you guys next week.